Hi, this is John with EPS. Today we're going to do an install video of our tongue box and our optional spare tire carrier. Out of the box, the tongue box is going to look like this. Your diamond plate lid, your hinge plate, your aluminum bottom. This is going to be the optional spare tire carrier, which actually mounts onto the mounting plate of the tongue box. The kit comes with all the hardware, nuts and bolts that you're going to need to do this install. Is very simple. If you're handy with a drill and some wrenches, it's no problem. What you're going to need is a drill with a 15/16 bit as well as a 13/64. You're going to need a socket or a wrench with a half-inch bit, 3/8, and a 5/16, and that covers all of these three sets of screws and nuts, and it's pretty simple.
Okay, before we get started, we're going to want to support the front of the trailer with a jack stand so that we can remove some bolts up here safely. First thing we want to do is jack this up, place appropriate support underneath it, and then lower it down so we can remove the pressure off of the front wheel. The other option is you can lower your stabilizer jacks so that you can remove the weight off this. The important thing is we don't want the weight of the trailer on the front wheel because we need to remove two of these bolts. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get this cable out of the way. I'm going to pass it through here. You have to kind of wiggle it around a little bit and bring it out the front. That allows us to install everything without having the cable in the way. The next thing we need to do is mount our latch catch. So we need to remove these two bolts here. You can remove this with a power tool or by hand. It's a little easier to do with a power tool. So we're going to get rid of those and replace them with new hardware. This hardware is slightly longer, allowing us to attach the latch catch plate. Okay, once those bolts are replaced, they're a little bit longer, so it allows you to take and slide this plate into position, then take the nuts and put them on the bottom. That'll hold it in place. Now I recommend putting this piece in first, then the top, and leave the bottom for last, so that once the top is in, if you need to adjust this, you can come up from the bottom and reposition the plate a little bit if it's not catching perfectly. So the next step at this point will be to take the actual lid and lay it into place. So what we'll do here is we'll just slide this underneath here, and then we'll just line it up. So what you want to do when you're lining this thing up is try and center it down the sides. Leave yourself a little bit of a gap up here so that when you open and close it, it doesn't scrape on the front. All right, so the first hole is in the front here. You can use the existing holes here as a guide. So we're drilling 5/16 holes here. Okay, with the front holes drilled, we're going to take some of our 5/16 hardware and set it into place. It may be difficult, depending on how far forward or backward this has been installed, to get to these rear holes to drill them out. All right, in order to get to these bolts, you may be able to work around, but it's probably the easiest to go ahead and remove your propane tank and your battery so that you can get to these bolts. All right, so the location of these bolts, there's one here and another pair down the side of the battery box here. They use 7/16, so John and I are going to go ahead and loosen those up so we can slide this box back. All right, this is one of those situations where having the extra set of hands really helps. I have John down below with a wrench, and I'm using a impact gun to remove them. All right, we have the bolts removed. Now we're able to actually take this piece here, slide it back. That gives us a little more access to get to these rear bolt holes. If you opted for the optional spare tire carrier, you'll need to remove the bolts on this side, and they'll actually feed through here when you put this on. All right, so in order to add the optional spare tire carrier, You may need to reposition this bolt or drill a hole in the tire mounting bracket. It's your choice, but there is a bolt holding on your safety brake. So there's a 7/16 nut on this side and the bolt on this side. Just need to remove this. So you can just set this piece down in the frame while you line up your tire holder. This I'm going to temporarily install the top 2 bolts. Okay, with this piece removed and set inside the frame, we want to make sure it's not going to get drilled through when we drill this bottom hole. So I put this in place temporarily to line up for this bottom bolt hole. I put that in place. I marked the location for my hole. When I drill this through, I want to make sure that I'm not going to drill through any of the wires for my safety brake, so make sure those are out of the way. Okay, with that hole drilled, I should be able to put all of my hardware in place. Okay, those are the 3 bolts that will hold this on. Okay, once I have all of my holes drilled and my hardware in place, I want to go ahead and close the lid again and make sure that it's connected, it's not rubbing, it's still in a good position before I finally tighten these down. So once I verify that I'm still in a good position, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten up all my fasteners. Then I will tighten this bolt in the front here last. Nice and solid. All right, to drill the hole for the relocation of the safety brake, I'm just going to line up a 1/4-inch drill bit with the existing hole and drill this direction. Okay, so now I take my safety brake, reinstall my original hardware. All right, with all the hardware in place, the lid is already mounted. We're good to go there. The only thing left to do is mount up the bottom panel. So after we put all that hardware in, we went ahead and re-secured this, put the bolts back in it. Everything's finished. Let's move to the bottom. All right. So before we can put the bottom on, we need to go ahead and get our jack stand out of the way. If you've used one of those, go ahead and remove it at this time. All right, so in order to put the bottom on, it's fairly simple. We're just gonna line it up on the bottom here. Slide it forward, make sure that we're centered, we're not overlapping any of the edges. Slide it forward. Now we need to mark at least one of these holes. So that we can drill it. The easiest way to do this would be to mark 1 or 2 holes, drill them, go ahead and put the bolts into those locations and then use the existing holes for your drilling of the remainder of the holes. So now that I have my first hole drilled, I'm going to take my hardware and tighten it in position. Once I have a couple of these in, it's going to be a lot easier for me to go ahead and use the existing holes to drill through to put the rest of the hardware in. All right, with everything installed, the bottom plate mounted up, we're all finished. We have the tire mounted in place. The last thing to consider is what you're going to put in here. In order to manage your trailer hookup wire, you can pull it to the length that you need. Just put it in here. Put a nice little twist in it. Tuck it up like that, and it's out of the way, and now you have the proper length that you need. Now you're ready to put whatever you want into your trailer box.